Right, hello. Right, let me just see if I should pin me. Okay, right. Okay, great. So what I wanted to cover today is I wanted really to look at, in a sense, something that we didn't really get time to do when we were together at summer school because it's sort of so busy, hanging out with the plants and doing exciting stuff. So really what I want to talk about is kind of how we use plant material in treatments, actual treatments, clients coming and what we actually, how we actually do. So just going to talk about the ins and outs of that. I'm not going to share my screen because otherwise you'll start reading it. So I'll just sort of talk through it. So it's really about kind of allowing the plants to lead, of course, but just having a bit of a map of thinking, because also this is part of our offerings, isn't it? When we work, if we want to work with clients. So we're just sort of thinking about how many different ways can we bring plants and plant products and plant material or plant ceremony, plant prayers and so on, and their energy into our practice to help clients. So with plant blessings and limpias, they're such a big part of my work, and I have a feeling that they might be a big part of your work in the future too. So that's like really key. And the funny thing is, like when I first started doing this work, I would kind of, I suppose, I like things like the plant blessings and the foot baths or hand baths or actual full body baths. I kind of was thinking of these as, oh, we'll just do this before we do the treatment, but sometimes they are kind of enough in themselves. So it's all sort of, I feel like in a sense we allow ourselves to be guided in. It's kind of part of the treatment plan, if you like, with the client. So in a sense, what I'm saying is we can use these kind of on their own, or we can use them all together, depending sort of what we're kind of guided to do. So we've kind of looked at the plant blessings, we've looked at the foot baths. We haven't necessarily talked about bringing plants into the treatment space. So this is the thing that I want to cover today. So we can bring plants into the treatment space. We can add the plants into our treatment. We can be giving Reiki, and we can be spraying flower essences. We can be bringing essential oils into sort of the air. We can place plant material on a client's body. So there's many different ways that we can do this. We can also bring plants into our meditations, into Reiki shares. We can call in the power of the trees. We can create landscapes, altars, mandalas, beautiful kind of sort of things with crystals, flower petals. We can really go to town with how we want to bring the plants into our space, our treatments. And really sort of sharing, if you like, your inspiration from the plants is so key to actually almost like awakening in other people as well. And also giving and receiving treatments outside in nature, having walks with clients in nature, maybe kind of having a bit of a, if you have a chat with a client before a treatment or after a treatment, helping them ground in nature, that kind of, so really, really simple ways, in a sense, that we can bring in that supportive power of nature. And what was I going to say, or something else I was going to say? Okay, never mind, I've lost that. Okay, so I want to sort of look at this is taken from my book actually, and I've got a handout for you, so don't worry about taking too many notes. But so in a sense, there are a few different kind of ways that we can do this. So obviously we're going to allow the plants to lead, and as we get more and more into working with the plants, we'll be finding that, and also with the seasons, we'll be finding that, you know what, wow, rosemary is really following me around at the moment. I'm doing so much with rosemary, or like in my case at the moment, it's still calendula, that's still sort of going really strong. So we follow the seasons and cycles to some degree. But so in a sense, what I'm saying is the plants will always lead, but you will actually end up having your preferred method of delivery. So it will just happen. So one of the ways that you can bring the sort of plants in is before a treatment. If a client's booked with you, then you can basically be tuning in before the client gets there. So you can invite Reiki to flow and do a meditation, or you can go out for a walk in your garden, or simply kind of connect with, if you like, your own person apothecary, or your garden, and just connect with a plant, invite a plant. What I sort of do in a sense, I suppose, is I'm kind of in my space or in my journey or in my meditation, I'm thinking of that client in my mind. I'm thinking, oh, what's this person, what does it feel like that this person needs help with? Because I don't always tell you. So you're tuning into what it might feel like, what they might need, and just noticing what plants might be coming forward. So it might be that you've done a meditation and a plant comes forward. It might be that you've got a lovely deck of cards like Harvest has got, and you go, you know what, I'm going to just pull one of these cards that's going to give me a sense of things. It might be that you take a walk in your garden, and this is what I used to do in the farm when I had the farm, and this is when all this kind of started, is I noticed that plants would be kind of waving at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just hang out with you for a bit. And I would find a way to incorporate that plant in the treatment, which might mean I'd take a little sprig of it and I'd have it by the client's pillow. You know, I started very, very, if you like, in a very small way. And remember, actually, little is very powerful. We don't have to go crazy. We don't, you know, and it helps, I think, not to scare people away as well. Like, we don't have to be doing the Olympias to that level that Rossio's offering, and you know, on that Healing the Healers weekend. We can be really, really gentle with these kind of offerings of the plant. So one way I call it sort of like intuitively tuning in prior to the client's arrival. So you're getting a picture, you're asking plants to come in. Another way, which is really lovely to do, is if you have a situation where you, and obviously this is ideal. This is like what I'm thinking. It really depends on what your offering is and where you are, because it's really ideal to, in an ideal world, I would walk around my garden with my clients before and I've been asking them, oh, well, how are you? What can I do for you today? How would you like to feel? Is there something you'd like to change? And we would walk around the garden together. And I just asked the client to go to where they felt guided, and so on. So that's another way to do it, to have the client in your space and directing them perhaps to plants that they feel guided. Because sometimes what happens is, this happens naturally. A client will show up and they'll go, oh my God, what's that, a lovely pink bush that you've got growing by the door or something? And you're like, aha, okay, now I'm getting a picture of what needs to happen here. So one idea, if you like, is going sort of for a walk with the client, for a kind of plant connection with the client. Another idea is that if you know that client well, and if they feel if you know that they're open to it, you can say to them while they book, you know, in between that space, if they booked a treatment with you and then they're going to come to you, in that in between space, tell them to look out for plants and to ask them to think about plants that they enjoy, trees, for example, or flowers, herbs, etc., that come to mind, or are their favorite at this time of year. So they might come, if you like, with a plant ally, not that they would call it that, but they might be feeling particularly connected to basil or rosemary. You know, sometimes these culinary herbs, they play such a key role because they are a really kind of first point of contact for everybody. Or they might, and trees as well, because they're so large. So that's getting, if you like, the client to do the work. And this also, like I said, helps if you're giving a series of treatments, because the client will, I often have reports after a client has had a treatment with me. It's not unusual for me to have clients contact me about an amazing experience they've just had in nature, kind of in that week or so, a couple of days following the treatment. And they'll say, oh, suddenly the colors look more vivid, or I saw this amazing tree. Or they'll text me a picture of a plant, and I haven't even asked them to. I've not even mentioned nature, or I've said, oh yes, maybe, you know, go and ground in nature, or you know, I've maybe sort of given them a bit of homework to be in nature, but in no way have I sort of directed it. But you can, if they're really open, you can say, oh, for example, I'm working with a client at the minute, and I've asked her, are there any trees where you live that you can you know, that you can go to, that you feel that are easy for you to access, that can support you? So this is again another way that we can ask clients and help them stay grounded and help them feel supported. And another sort of one of the other ways, another sort of client method number 4 really, is really about you creating, if you like, your natural toolkit, your in your kind of beautiful apothecary or Reiki space, your treatment space, or your kitchen, having a kind of collection of products, perhaps herbal products that you've perhaps made, or flowers that you've pressed, or beautiful cards that you can draw on that are oracle cards of the plants, or products, flower essences, essential oils, plant material, plant products that you have that you can kind of, or a beautiful altar, for example, which is connected to the seasons, which is full of leaves and or seashells and rocks and stones and crystals and fresh plant material, and having what I call like this natural toolkit. So if you have a space which is filled with that, but when a client comes in, you can ask them, what could you choose 3 items from the altar that you'd like to be with you during the treatment, as an example? And they might choose a crystal, they might want to choose a flower, they might want to choose just notice that it can be really interesting. Or if you haven't got access to much because it's winter and you haven't really made any products and you or you're traveling, then having a deck of cards, just say, would you like to pull a plant card, and we'll have that as part of the treatment. So I'm giving you some ideas of how I've kind of worked, or how I've worked in the past, to sort of kind of help us with these kind of how do we, it's really like how do we bring the plants in? Because obviously when we know a plant, we can call on it and it can come into the space. We do not have to have a sprig of rosemary to get rosemary in that space. It's very nice for us to, because it helps all our senses, and it really helps to bridge the sort of this reality and that unseen reality. So it really, really helps the clients as well. And we get to kind of be carried away with the aromatic or the sensual or the kind of sensory experience of plants. But remember, if we've got a connection, we can call on those plants. And it's lovely, actually, if you have a natural daylight where you are, or if you're practicing outside, because you can call on the plants that you see outside the window. So here in my office, for example, I have got a sycamore and a eucalyptus tree and a Philadelphus, funnily enough, that is just right out of this window. And out of this window, there's a massive buddleia and a massive Rosa rugosa and a hawthorn, and the sea. So I have got these natural elements that I can call on for support very, very easily, because they're just there. So I don't, in a sense, have to bring in a representation of the sea in my space, because it's here, it's just outside my window. So I'm just giving you some ideas. So I hope this is useful. Does anyone want to unmute and ask a question where we're at so far?
I don't know whether this is helpful or not, but for my first Olympia, I kind of taught my client to open the space periphery, so she became in her child's mind rather than her adult's mind. And then I said, right, I would like you to go and find a place that you would like to have your Olympia. And so she was guided to one of the trees, and that's where she had her Olympia.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, working with the inner child, invite it, or sort of, yeah, another exercise I sometimes do, we didn't do it, I don't think, this summer school, is, yeah, you call forward the inner child or your 5-year-old self, for example. You imagine you're holding them by the hand and they are taking you to a place in, a place outside, a place in the garden, which is special, something like that. And then asking them, and then obviously you learn about nature. You see nature, like Harvest is saying, through the eyes of the child, not the adult. Yeah, that's really lovely to involve the inner child. Okay, so I'm going to just talk a little bit more about this sort of what I call the sort of, I think I just call it your natural sort of Reiki, your toolkit, really. And obviously we've got Reiki, we've got the plants, we've got, some of us got drums and rattles. So sometimes, so you can gather everything together. I mean, I've got lots of baskets where I basically keep all my bits and pieces. So I've got crystals, I've got stones, I've got driftwood, flower essences, again, ones that I've made, ones that I've bought, essential oils, dried herbs, dried flower petals, seeds, zillions of seeds, pine cones, any sort of holy water or spring water, water that you've blessed with Reiki. You've energized the Reiki water that you put from the full moon or the new moon. So again, we can get really powerful with this stuff. And actually, you can kind of see behind me in this cupboard where I'm pointing, that is a lot of these sort of big amber bottles. That's a lot of some of my mother essences and my tinctures and they only come out kind of on special occasions. I tend to decant them so they're more in tinier bottles to be if you like, out in the place. Sometimes you can have books and oracle cards as well. It's just anything in a way that is going to spark your inspiration or clients' inspiration. Pictures as well. In this office, for example, I've got I've got that. I can't think what it is. I've got poppy heads. I've got hedgehogs, unicorns, crows, hawthorn, seed of life. You know, we have these things naturally. And I can see around on back. And Helen's got gorgeous pictures of that bird. There's a bird behind you, Helen, which is just so amazing. So we have these images, these things anyway. And it's just about almost like you being open and go, oh yeah, wow, this power can come into my treatment space as well. You know, we're connected to the web of all things. Our healing doesn't happen separate from, it's part of. And all of these objects as well carry different power for us and have I suppose different qualities and also have a different vibration and a different story. So what else have I got on my little list here? Things like, yeah, so anytime you basically go out in nature, I know hagstones, for example, you know, the stones with the hole in the middle, collections of those, collecting special sacred items that you might wear, like this, for example. We collect things, we buy things are gifted to us. So every like the other day I was in I've got him on my altar up here. I was in a junk shop the other day, and there's a little tiny figure. In fact, there was Merlin, and King Arthur and Guinevere, and you know these old-fashioned Wade figures. Anyway, I've got Merlin, a little tiny Merlin. I thought, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to bring Merlin in because he's special. So I know I've gone off topic. We're not talking plant magic now, but we kind of, you get the essence of it. These things have a quality, and Anne made a really good point earlier about, yes, to keep things cleansed. I think we're all quite good at cleansing crystals. I think that's been drummed into us, but yes, it's a really good reminder to cleanse everything. And also instruments. Obviously your voice is really special and will say prayers and gratitudes to the plants, as well as perhaps invite plants to share their songs with you, which is really important. But also bells, singing bowls, gongs, chimes, rattles and shakers, whistles, anything, drums, like we said, just adding them, oracle cards, etc. Any symbols that you like to use. So obviously we're all Reiki trained. There's lots of Reiki symbols. As well as, I mean, obviously I use a lot the flower of life at the moment, and I use the infinity symbol. That just seems to be a symbol of the moment for me. So just remembering that we can use it all basically, or we can just pare things down. So it's about feeling your way. Also, okay, so we've got fresh picked plant material, absolutely. Things that carry, you know, for me, I'm always in favor of, if you like, elements that are kind of in season from where you live. It's lovely to be gifted something from a foreign land, for example. That's lovely too, but there is a quality of healing that you get. It's the vibration really of like we know a plant medicine, or let's say a peppermint tea that I might make from the peppermint that's in my garden, in comparison to the peppermint tea I might make from the tea bag that I bought from the grocery store. You know, there's a difference in quality. There's a difference in frequency. Obviously, they both have a really valid purpose. We don't, you know, in the middle of winter, I'm not going to get peppermint from my garden. And even though I've dried it, it might just look brown and not very attractive. And it's just easier for me to use a tea bag, you know, as an example. But just know that the plants that are on our doorsteps, that are local to us, that breathe the same air that we do, that are really plugged, you know, we're of the same vibration. So they are going to be able to heal us in a, well, I think in a superior way than, let's say I've gone online and I've got some, you know, some Chinese medicine for something. So it's really about what you feel guided to get. But also, yeah, I think herbal teas can be, just as an aside, herbal teas can be a really wonderful addition to kind of bringing into a treatment space at the end, because you can have a very gentle herbal tea blend that will help somebody ground or bring somebody's energy back. Or, I mean, you saw when you were at the Plant Spirit Summer School, when we all had a Tulsi tea, I mean, that threw us all into a sort of, you know, so again, herbal teas can be really lovely, kind of, again, and also let's just sort of think about it. Sometimes at the start of a treatment, what I'll do is I might give somebody a herbal tea and a foot bath, so they can't go anywhere. They have to stay there. They have to sit, let's say, with a form that I'm saying that I've got them to fill out that says what's going on right now for you. And they can't go anywhere because I put them in that foot bath, so they can't get up. And what I do sometimes, I'm a bit sneaky, is I don't put a towel out. I'll go away. And they're like, oh, I can't really move. So it really helps somebody sort of sit, if you like, with their stuff. And I, you know, and I offer them a sort of, you know, the form to fill out about, you know, what's going on, tell me what's going on, sort of thing. Or I'll then sit with them and we can have a chat. Also, though, a herbal tea, for example, is a very nice thing at the end, because it definitely makes sure somebody's grounded, and it obviously will hydrate them. And I mean, in an ideal world, I'd, you know, give someone a herbal tea and tell them to go and spend all afternoon in the garden, you know, grounding and connecting and, you know, coming back to life, sort of thing. I don't know if people really have that amount of time or gift that amount of time to themselves, to be honest. Mostly we're kind of in and out, aren't we? So I feel that I don't know, I'm leaning more and more towards kind of offering people these healing spaces and encouraging not just a sort of quick in and out of a treatment, which is obviously what I was taught when I learned Reiki. It's very much like, oh, I can do 45 minutes or an hour, you know, and then my treatments are longer, so that we have that integration time. Because integration, if there's one thing I've learned through all of my shamanic work in the last 10 years, is that integration, well, preparation, okay, and integration are my sort of two favorite things, really. So integration, by integration, I mean almost like that realization that after a treatment or after you've given Reiki, when you've stepped back and you've kind of like, okay, I've turned the Reiki off, that's not flowing anymore. It's the realization that it's like the snow globe's been stirred up, and particularly if you drum or rattle or perhaps even do plant blessings, things have been stirred up in the energy field. So that a piece of integration is needed, it's necessary for the energy field to kind of settle. It's like the snow globe was shaken up and all the little bits have come back together, but they've come back in a slightly different place. So the human kind of needs a chance to gather itself and go, okay, well, what's going on here? So the integration piece after a treatment like put on a piece of music, go and make the herbal tea. And I always say to a client, you know, I will let you know when that treatment's finished. And so I will always put some music on and just invite them to stay. And actually, yeah, in a sense, rather than go off and make the tea, I actually sit there in that space, because often for me, that is when I also receive insight. Because if I'm quite busy, let's say with a treatment, messing around with plants or tuning in or drumming or whatever it is I'm doing, if I'm sort of in busy mode, I'll be sensing things in my subconscious mind, but I don't necessarily receive perhaps all the information I need. So it's in the integration piece after the treatment that things almost like the penny drops for me, and I go, oh, I can see that now. I can, or if I feel that I've had a treatment in which the client was quite closed and I feel a little bit lost, like I don't know what I was doing. I was just going with the flow and they're going to ask me things and I don't know. So I will say in that integration piece, when there's the music on, I'll just sit there and I'll say, please, you know, let me know, show me if there's anything I need to share with the client. What do I need to share? What does the client need to know? Or how can or if there's been a huge healing piece, or if I sense there's been a massive sort of release or retreat, power retrieval, or whatever I feel has gone on, I'll say, can you give me some guidance on how the client can integrate this? Because I kind of feel the enormity of it. And that's when you might get plants coming through as well. Right. Okay. So I'm sidetracking a little bit. What I wanted to actually talk about is yes, so using plant material in treatments. I just want to sort of go into that. Yeah, so you might have an idea of how you want to work before the client gets there. You might be like, oh my God, it's nettle, it's nettle. And obviously for a plant like nettle, you're not going to be lying the client on the couch and bashing them with nettle. I mean, you can, that is a treatment in itself, isn't it? Urtication, but it's not really one that we want to be promoting. So plants which are prickly, a bit like that, like bramble, you can just have them in a vase, or you can put them on the client, but obviously like you can with crystals, but you have to, you know, just be sure just to be anything that's prickly or stingy. You've got to, or even like berries like elderberry, they stain things, and that just doesn't make you very popular. So just be really cautious about how you're going to be using plant materials. And actually, even as I'm talking, I'm feeling really almost like conscious of the fact that I'm saying using plants and working, but so you know, it's just the way we don't, how do we have another way of saying it? Working with clients, we're co-creating. So what we're doing really when we open our Reiki space is we are co-creating with the plants. We're inviting the spirit of the plants in. We're saying, hi, I'm opening my healing space today. I'm inviting Reiki to flow. I'm inviting my guides to be here. I'm honoring all of this. Maybe I've got one client today, maybe I've got a couple, but I'm inviting in the guidance. What can we co-create together? Show me what we can co-create. Show me who wants to come forward and help this client, and how I can help them. So we're kind of in that space. And I know I keep saying using them because I can't think of another way that but you know what I mean? We're working with them, we're inviting them, and we're honoring them, and we're asking them to show us, to help us. So I know in my book, I think this comes from my book, I don't know why I'd have it written on a handout if it didn't. I wrote a prayer which I used to use as part of the intention to request the spirits of the natural world for their assistance. And I'm just going to share it with you. I'll give you this handout so you don't write it down. So I would say something like, nature spirits and guardians of the natural world, elements of earth, fire, air, and water, spirits of the herbs, flowers, plants, and trees. I call to you and ask for you to bring your healing blessings and guidance to help, and then the client's name, where he or she needs it most and is ready to receive healing. May this healing flow with the power of Reiki, universal energy, for the highest good of all beings, and so be it. And obviously, if you're working with a specific issue, so if you really had a kind of specific client intention, you would fashion it in that way. Or if you knew exactly, you know what, I work exclusively with mugwort, calendula, and nettle, that's what I'm doing. It might be that you have an ally who really is your gateway plant, and they basically lead the way on everything. I think it really, for each of us, it just depends how our practice develops. It's really funny. I was teaching the drumming weekend on Saturday and Sunday. And in the first journey, we're meeting a guide, and this girl goes, "Oh, I went into my garden and I was shown mugwort, calendula, and lavender. And mugwort just wouldn't stop talking." And I was like, "Oh God!" I mean, mugwort is such a bossy. I was like, "Oh, she's so bossy." So for lots of people, mugwort really ends up being this kind of this goddess who is like, "No, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do it like this," which is fine. So just know that, and also know that it is fine to say, because obviously I'm throwing all this stuff at you and I'm saying, yeah, we can use the trees and the plants and the thing and the that and the seashells and the coconut shells or whatever you want to use. But just know that you don't have to use anything. You can just show up and be you and call in these connections that you've had. So say, for example, let's take Helen, for example, who had this lovely connection with our geum, this beautiful tangerine geum. So you've got that connection in your heart, Helen. I know you've probably got one by now, but at the time you didn't have one, but you're like, gosh, something about that plant, I can just feel it. And you know what that sense of that plant is. And we've all had that feeling like you when we've met a plant or we've been under the shade of an amazing tree, or you've just seen this magnificent tree and you've felt it and you felt its presence and you might have connected to it. You might have just really felt it come and meet you. That tree or that plant, in Helen's case, you can bring that plant into a healing space because you've kind of, if you like, you've met it, you've seen each other. So it's harder when we haven't kind of met and had that experience with plants, which is why slowly little by little, we're developing our relationships with the plants. Because we don't have to have 100 allies. We just have to have some, like near and dear close friends who help us and help develop our practice. And it's going to be, in a sense, quite exciting to see for each of us how the practice develops. So what can we do? So we've got a client who's lying down on the couch, and they might have chosen some material, you might have chosen some material. So for example, we know that we can brush their body, we can brush their energy field. So I sometimes, especially with things like, I love to brush the energy field with rosemary when they're lying down. And I know that's a bit of Olympia, but sometimes I sort of just can't help myself. Sometimes also a client might want to hold something in their hand. This can even be like, for example, even if it's a tincture. So say I've made some tinctures and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm not a herbalist. I shouldn't be saying, I'm not, it's not my place to say to you, oh yeah, take the tincture, you'll be fine. No. I haven't had that clinical training. I haven't done that kind of in-depth, shall we say, health questionnaire with the client. That's not what I'm insured to do. However, if a client is like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, that's a mushroom tincture. That's a such and such. And if they're really drawn to it, then I just say, well, let's have it on the treatment couch with you. Do you want to hold it? Or yeah, and they'd be like, yeah, I just want to actually have it kind of here near my shoulder. I'm like, okay, and we try and organize that. And it's the same for flower essences. There's absolutely no reason that somebody needs to ingest anything. They can just have it with them because it's a frequency, okay? So that's how I, if you like, get around that side of things, because I think, well, no, we're dealing with frequency, we're dealing with energy medicine, we're not. And then if someone's really intrigued and they thought, gosh, that's a really powerful flower essence or whatever it is, this plant concoction, you say, oh, you can go and buy one. You experiment yourself, so then we're not saying, oh, I'm a herbalist and I'm telling you that you need to go and do this. You can say, well, this is why I use it. You might find it appealing, so get people to make their own choices, for example. I mean, flower essence is slightly different. I love actually working with flower essences. When I used to have the flower farm, I would make flower essences and I'd sell them on the market stall. And I would love watching people come up and just really gravitate to one. I only had about 7, and they would just be like, sometimes you'd be like, oh, I need this, and I look at them and I go, okay, if you need, and they wouldn't even look at them, like, you know, I'd made a little leaflet about what all of them were, didn't even need to read the leaflet, we're just like, I need to have this. So it's really interesting having these available, stuff like this. What else have I gonna, oh yeah, spray. So using flower essences or sprays, again, these energy sprays, these crystal sprays, we can buy all sorts of sprays, we can make our own sprays, and just spraying them in the air over a client, so that the plant can be in the zone. But also, again, anytime we're using materials, we're inviting the spirit of that plant to be with us. So Palo Santo or sage or other plants that you're using to burn and to cleanse your space, you're inviting that plant that you're intentionally kind of lighting that herbal bundle. You are not doing it willy-nilly. You're not just going, yeah, cool, yeah, just going through the motions here. We're calling forward that plant. And the reason I say that is because there will come a time when you do not have that plant material with you, and you really feel like you want to cleanse the space. Or you will have a client, and I was in my shamanic training, there was a lady who was allergic. She couldn't burn, you couldn't burn anything. And you could see all of us practitioners going, yes, but I want to burn something because I need to burn something because I need to clear the space. But if you've got that relationship with the plants that you use to clear space, you do not need that plant with you. You can invite the energy of that plant there. Okay, I know the human likes to burn it because we kind of like to smell it and all of that, and it's a different experience. But to make that relationship with those plants means that if you don't have them for whatever reason, the energy of them will still be there for you. What else? Oh yes, lovely things like essential oils, for example. You think, well, how can I do that? Yes, you can burn them in a diffuser, but also I always find it, if a client's guided to them, I will put them on a tissue next to the client's pillow, so they can smell them. And it sounds really sad. I'm doing this at the moment with frankincense with my dog Bertie, because she's not very well. And one of the girls at the weekend's an animal therapist, and she said, Faye, you need to put frankincense under her nose, because frankincense will help her let go, because she doesn't want to leave you and the guys here, you know, all the dogs and stuff. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving it a go, because it's really sad, because she's poorly, but she can't let go. So yeah, on a tissue, some essential oil. What else have we got? Yeah, nourishing herbal infusions, talked about that. Yeah, any aromatics placed on the client's pillow, gorgeous things. So yeah, rosemary, you can put them in a sort of bundle, if you like, a little canvas bag underneath, or just in a, like a sprig of rosemary, you know, in the client's pillow. They're going to smell that. So just very subtle ways that we can do, and they don't even need to know that the plants are there. And one of my friends used to make, she was very clever, she used to make these amazing eye masks out of old silk ties. So they were gorgeous, sort of bright, silky things. And she used to put aromatic herbs in the eye mask. So you put the eye mask over somebody and it would just smell incredible. So, you know, she would use things like wormwood, lavender, all the mints, lemon balm, thyme. It was just a whole load of garden herbs just put in these in an eye mask. It was a dream. I mean, that's the treatment in itself, particularly when you are conscious of the herbs in there and you bring them into the space, and inviting their healing energies into the space. And like I said previously, if there are trees and plants outside that you can see, invite that power into the space, and especially to help a client ground, for example. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say. I think that is that. I feel like I've talked a lot. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Does anyone have any questions on what I've just said? No.
I'm a bit fascinated in terms of like, one thing that I'm working through and trying to land is I have all these different sort of lengths of time that I do things like depending on the space and what's going on. And yeah, so I guess the question is like, how long do you allow a client? Because I really like the idea of being able to stretch it out, and yet in order to do it sometimes, I know where I'm practicing at the lounge, for example, we're very set 90 minutes because they're at a treatment centre where everything else is timed. But here I have my own feeling that it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but I get the feeling. I just wondered how long you get the sense with integration and everything else, how long you sort of find that is averaging out at, or
Yeah, actually, I find now it's a really good question. I find now, like for me, so the idea, like I was saying, the idea of trying to do a treatment in 60 minutes now is just like, no, that is just never going to happen. There's too much going on in terms of client care and that listening part. We depending on how long when we do these, we've got 3 more sessions, so there is a piece on listening that I kind of want to do if we've got time, but yeah, so the idea of 60 minutes is just a joke. So I'm 90 minutes, just going on what this client was last week. She was about 2 hours in the end. I had said to myself I was going to do it in 90 minutes, but she was 2 hours. And I know that tomorrow when I see her, she'll be 90 minutes. Yeah. But also, I suppose in a way, there is an element for me, something that I am aware of, is the idea of having to over deliver. So again, I'm really aware of that. Like we don't need to. Sometimes actually, even with plant work or shamanic work, like things can happen so instantly. So there is this idea that, oh no, it needs to be longer, but it doesn't. But yeah, sometimes like say you were drumming, 10 minutes, you can do it, you can do a soul retrieval in 10 minutes, which has kind of healed something from, that someone's been with for like 45 years, So it's interesting. I think the time piece is very interesting, Helen, and I think you have to work with what you've got
yeah,
and know and trust that what you're doing is exactly right.
yeah,
But also the piece, the thing that's all I don't like giving treatments in the morning because I often feel that people will just go and just go back to their busy day. I much prefer to treat people from 2 o'clock in the afternoon onwards, because then they've hopefully will be kinder to themselves, rather than trying to just kind of, oh yeah, I did my treatment and now I'm back into busy mode. So in a way, if we're able to give a client a bit longer in terms of integration, then I feel it's going to help them sort of long term, because they won't give it to themselves. But then the problem that you've got is time is money. I hate to say it. And if a 2 hour treatment, well, to be honest, what we're offering people, my lady from 2 years ago, Plant Spirit Reiki School, she calls it Reiki Plus. Faye, I'm doing Reiki Plus. And it kind of is, isn't it? Because we've got all these other skills, and Reiki is showing us how we can bring them all together in a treatment space to help somebody. So in a sense, the Reiki treatment that you might find in the town for £40 an hour, we're not offering that. But unfortunately, some people looking would just compare and they would think that you are. So it's like this sort of challenge, isn't it? Because I don't feel that that's what we're offering at this level at all. That we can offer that, but there's so many other things that we want to kind of include. And what we will find is if we don't include them, they will find a way anyway. They will kind of come in. And what happened, so the reason I started to sort of say that my treatments were going to be longer is because I started to realize that I was getting annoyed. I was feeling resentful if a client was sort of talking and oversharing. I mean, not oversharing, just sharing at the end of the treatment. And I kind of was really aware of me kind of on the clock looking and then thinking to myself, God, I haven't charged enough for this. Like, you're really talking. And all the human questions going on in my head, going, how do I get this person out of my treatment space in a really safe, kind way, while putting my boundary in place of my time and not singing like a lawyer, you know, a solicitor is going, oh, well, gosh, that's another half an hour, which is another £20 or something, you know. And I was aware that I was doing that, and I thought, how can I get around that? And I'm like, well, you just say that your treatment's longer. That's what I had to do, because I just was like, I can't squish it in because what I'm offering needs the space.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so do you tell people, because that's the other thing, isn't it? It's allowing people to prepare for the amount of time they're going to take. So I tend to say 90 minutes, and then yeah, by the time I finish the
yeah,
feedback,
and that you can't say it's going to be a 60-minute treatment if you, and then you are the one who's sort of gone on and on with things. But they're also, again, this comes back, we can maybe deal with this another session, is if we find when we kind of open up a session, oh my God, there's so much going on here, we have to kind of almost compartmentalize and say, okay, what am I available for now? What's the client's intention now? The client's intention now is to do this, that, and the other. So these 3 things have come to my attention, but actually this intention is going to deal with 1 of them. There are 2 more things. So I haven't got the space to hold, you know, it's like I haven't got the capacity to do that now, and I'm not available for that. So you can kind of put that in a safe space with Reiki, or leave it with the ancestors, you know, or leave it with a tree and just say, okay, I see you. The client's going to be aware of you. We're going to come back and we're going to look at that next time. Because sometimes there will be a lot going on, and it won't necessarily take you a lot of time, but it can make the client very sort of wobbly and completely ungrounded, and it will be harder to get them back. So yeah, timing is, I mean, this is one of the things me and Harvest have been discussing, is these kind of time boundaries, and what do you put in place, and yeah, how, and also, like for me, if I'm doing a foot bath and I do it out there in the caravan where I don't have water, I sort of have to juggle it. I have to work out, well, how am I going to do it? And it takes a bit of time of toing and froing and stuff. So there are all these things to consider. And obviously, if you're renting a treatment space somewhere, well, see, if you're stuck to an hour, then I would do I would just do a shorter version of sort of, you'd have to do the mini version, if you like, you know, like the mini manicure or whatever of that's what I think you'd have to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Sarah?
I'm really interested, because obviously I don't do this like a lot of people do, like, you know, professionally, let's say. But say if I did in the future, I mean, sort of, how do clients feel about having a 2-hour treatment? Does it sort of, well, you wouldn't know if it put some people off, because you just wouldn't see them, I suppose, would you? But, you know, do you get people who are really into that? I know I would be. Just interested.
What I find, Sarah, actually, I don't see that many one-to-one clients really, and the people that come to me tend to, they're having a day off. For some, it's always the sort of person, and then having a day off, they come to see me on their day off, and it's really funny. I think it's the nature of the fact that I've got a nice garden. Some people just go in kickback mode, and after the treatment, they're like, "Oh, can I go and see the goats?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can go and see the goats." And it's just, so that's. But for me, I feel that it's all part of the process, actually. But I don't necessarily reflect it, shall we say, in the pricing. Because yeah, if your time is your money, I'm not necessarily reflecting that, but yeah, but yeah, I do make it clear. I do say I think though I probably say there are 75 minutes to 90 minutes, and I always time check when someone's there. Because for me, sometimes the lengthy bit can be in the chat bit at the beginning and at the end. It doesn't have to be, the lengthy bit does not have to be the Reiki part with the plants, because like I said, healing can happen really, really quickly.
And obviously, because some of the things you're talking about, take time to prepare, don't they? You know, and you're not, you know, if you're doing a plant essence for somebody specifically or collecting certain things, it's sort of I'm interested, do those of you who are doing it, do you sort of account for that in some way? Or are you just like really, really low paid because it takes you hours to do everything, but you get paid for an hour? I'm only saying that because of how I used to work.
Do you mean like, do we account for the time that we might have made our flower essences or things like that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose I'm not even necessarily asking that. I'm just saying, gosh, there's a lot involved, isn't there, really, that you're not directly, let's say, paid for, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. Which is why when you get to me, who's been doing it for a long time, that's why often, you know, in the chat, in the WhatsApp, I'm just saying, oh, I'm lazy. I don't do that anymore. I do this. That's because it's a time thing.
Yeah.
So I find, and also this is why I can't emphasize enough, you don't have to have hundreds of plants and hundreds of medicines and hundreds of plant essences and all the things. Where we're at the minute is knowing that there is this panacea out there, and we're going, oh my God, guide me, show me what lights me up, show me what my soul wants me to do. Because maybe it's just one plant. Maybe it's like the yew tree, the pine tree. Maybe it's like the rose just says, you know what? It's rose, babe. You're always going to use the rose. You're going to be doing rose Reiki. That's your thing. You know, so we don't have to get, or in your instance, Sarah, you're training to be a herbalist, so you're going to have all the things. So Reiki for you will be a kind of, you'll be doing herbal medicine plus, not Reiki plus, probably.
Yeah,
you know.
I was thinking.
So and the same with Nan, like Nan makes her products to sell them. So, and you can add your, oh, hello, do you want to say something?
Hey, oh yeah, I just want to say that yes, in the beginning of like before I knew about Reiki or met Faye or anything, I was all about like all the things I can make. But I really appreciate, and it's made me like slow down and just look at things a different way, because one plant can be everything. And I've found that like vending at the farmers market, where like I have customers and I'm talking to people about plants, I don't talk about them the same way I used to. And like when they're like, oh, tell me about what this can do, and I'm like, well, I it can do a lot. It just depends. So I don't know. I push Tulsi on a lot of people just because it's so great. I'm just like, it's so great. It's a nerve end. But I don't know. I like that, to remember that one plant is great even as an herbalist. That makes sense. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it's all relaxing. This has been really good, Faye. I have lots of new ideas.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording if that's okay.
I was just going to say, I have a question.
Okay.
When you guys make essences, do you Reiki the essences? Do you?
Yeah, I think the Reiki comes through, you know,
Right.
And when I'm doing an essence, you know, it's almost like making an essence, making a tincture, even picking flowers is part of a process, isn't it? So if we tune into Reiki right at the start of that journey, then Reiki is with you for the whole part of the journey. So yes is the answer.
Right.
I think I do it almost, I mean, I do it consciously, but I do it unconsciously. And I really believe, you know, that if we're attuned to Reiki, Reiki is coming through. You know, I give it permission to come through all the freaking time. Like, just be me. I am Reiki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing that came up that I wanted to make sure I mentioned was, when I was at the Rosia thing and she sold the cacao, they did studies on this, and supposedly her cacao is supposed to have a lot more antioxidants, all the stuff's good for you. But she said the only difference is that they don't remove the spirit.
Mhm.
So I was just, it made me think about when you're saying the peppermint from your backyard that you like to give a client. It presumably we're all trying to maximize that plant spirit with these things that we're creating. So I would think that it would always be superior to something that you were going to purchase, unless it's being purchased with the same intention.
Yeah, I agree.
Result.
Thank you for sharing that. I totally agree with what you were saying. Well, it concurs with what I was saying earlier. But also, we know that in the marketplace, there are people like us who are making amazing products, who are selling amazing products. So we're very fortunate in that as soon as we kind of connect with products that we feel aligned with, like I bought, actually, it's quite funny because I think I must have bought it about 9 months ago and I haven't taken it. I don't know why, I just bought this mushroom tincture because I thought I'm never going to make a mushroom tincture. Like, well, I might, but just, you know what I mean. And anyway, it's been, and what I do, and actually, because Anne, you sent me that lovely bottle. I put things when I buy them on my altar. So I'm looking at my altar now. It's got Merlin, a unicorn. It's got, I can see at least 4 bottles of something on there. One is the one from Anne, one is the mushroom tincture, and then one is the flower essences. I can't read it, and I don't know what it is because it's obviously been there a while. So I charge them on my altar. I'll have them, and it's the same if I was to make, because some people, something that we didn't talk about is some people, as part, if you like, of their package, might say, right, you come to me and we'll do a plant limpia, or we'll tune into your energy field, or whatever, we'll do a plant reading. I mean, you know, whatever you want to say. And you might then go, right, you know what, I'm going to make you a special plant essence or a special aura spray for you, which is going to help you on your healing journey. And it might be like made with, you know, rose essential oils, or you know, whatever. You might just choose some essential oils and some plant essence that you've made or that you bought, and you put it all together in a spray bottle and you say, here you go, this is for you, this will help you integrate and connect with the healing that we've done today. I don't do that. I don't know why, because I love making essences and things, but I guess I haven't got around to it yet. So maybe I'll get around to it. But that's what some people do. And some people do that and they send them in the mail to people. That person doesn't even have to come. They just tune in. So the person doesn't even have to come and have a 2-hour treatment. They just tune in and then they make something in their beautiful apothecary and then they send it off. So that's another way. If you do feel like you like making medicines, and that in a way, Sarah, kind of answers your question a little bit. That's a way to make it pay for the time that you spend making all your lovely medicines. But I think at the start, you go crazy, you get excited by plants, and you make lots of medicines. And then you rein it in a little bit because things take a lot of time. And yeah, if they're not being used as well, you sort of think, oh, but I want to give this amazing essence to everybody because I've made it and it's so beautiful and I want to share it with everybody. How am I going to do that? So you find your way. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're finding our way, and we can obviously talk about that in future classes about how we find our way. But I just wanted to throw this piece out. This is like our first sort of extra class here on, like, you know, really talking about the client session and just throwing some ideas at you for that. So I'm going to just stop recording now. Okay, Harvest, do you want to?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I was guided to, I made a mugwort mother, and so but I just want to ask this question. So to make a essence for the client, I had to put half in of the mother and then half water. Is that using too much of the mother, or should I not be doing this at all?
I would only do a couple.
I would,
if it's the mother essence, you only need a couple of drops into that to make.
Oh my goodness, right. Okay.
I think as long as I find this part of flower essence is just really confusing, isn't it? So I'm thinking, have I said that right? I think I've said that right.
Right. So how many drops would I put in a bottle I don't know what size it is, sorry, but it's
like a 30 ml bottle. So say you've got your mother. My mothers tend to be in, let's say, a 50 ml or a 30 ml bottle. And that's the
right.
one where it's in the alcohol. And then I
Yeah.
take let's say 3 drops, and that goes into my bottle, which is alcohol. Well, it
Water.
depends what
Oh,
you're making
yes,
for them. It
alcohol and
depends.
water harvest. I know why you're getting mixed up. I'm doing the
Right.
same thing
I'm
myself.
totally confused. Right. So for the
I'm
client,
getting it
it's a
now.
bottle of water,
Okay.
right? With 3 drops in. Is that right?
So tell me what you're giving them though. Are you just giving them something for them to drink on the day?
No, it's a tincture.
Okay, if you want to give them something to take away, and
Yeah.
how are you telling them to? Because if you were making, so say this is my mother, and I take a couple of, so my mother is the flower essence in alcohol. Okay, I put it in alcohol.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
I've got a couple of drops. I got a bottle. This is my bottle for my client.
Yeah.
So this bottle is basically like whiskey or brandy. And then you just need a couple of drops of the mother into this. Okay.
Okay.
Then this is what you call the dosage bottle for the client. So you could have, if you wanted to, have added different flower essences into that. That is what you call the dosage bottle. And then from there, they put a couple of drops into water or tea, and that's how they take it. When you buy, normally when you buy flower essences in the shop, they are dosage bottles. You're not buying, so if you bought a batch flower remedy of oak, let's say, you're not buying the mother essence, you're buying the dosage bottle. And if you are giving a flower essence to a client to sort of take home and play with, shall we say, you're giving them a dosage bottle, and then you tell them that they would take a drop on their tongue or 3 drops in water every single time they want to take it. Or they could then put it in their bath, or they could then put it in a spray bottle with water. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much for clarifying that, because that has obviously been a big, muddle. Thank you.
Don't worry about it. But don't worry about it. Come on, someone just made this up, didn't they? Somebody just decided, oh, I know, I'm going to make some rules up about flower essences. Just make up
So
your
essentially
Fine.
they've got a mother essence, haven't they? No?
What have you given them?
Half and half.
All that means is that it's got a bit more water in. I think it's fine. It's fine. They've got more essence than they needed, shall we say?
Yeah,
So
okay.
fine.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
fine. Yeah, it's fine.
And then one other question. So as part of a session, would you make an essence with the client? Just an idea.
You could do. This is actually a great question, because we can involve clients in it all, can't we? We can involve it in. I once had a client who wanted to come and she wanted to make herbal salves with me, and that was really healing and lovely, and that's what we did together, and that was years ago. And so yeah, you can make you know depending on what's healing, what healing does that person need,
Yeah, playing. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, right, I'm just going to stop now.